Welcome back to Andersen Acres. We're here in the baby barn today because I wanted to talk to you about choosing an incubator. There are literally hundreds of incubators out there on the market. Some are great and some are absolutely terrible and will kill many batches of eggs. Most incubators are somewhere in the middle. Okay? They're good and workable, but not excellent. Excellent ones will cost you. So I will, full disclosure, this guy here, one of the best incubators I've ever used in my life. It's also one of the most expensive. So, incubator land is kind of a get what you pay for kind of thing. It's just the way it is. So, incubators, there are two types basically. There's still air and there's forced air. Okay? A still air incubator is cheaper, but it has its downsides. With care and attention, now this is a forced air, but a still air incubator with a lot of care and attention, you can hatch a lot of eggs. But because the air isn't actually circulated, so when the air is inside the incubator, it's not being blown around, okay? It doesn't really have a blower, it's just kind of heating up. So because of that, you can end up with hot spots and cold spots. Eggs might overheat and even cook in the wrong spot. And an egg that's not in the right spot might also just get too cold and never develop. That happens a lot. It's harder to regulate heat and humidity with a still air incubator, but if you're willing to fiddle, they can be a cheap way to hatch eggs. Okay, so I'm not knocking still air incubators. They can work. You just have to be willing to pay attention and fiddle a lot. Okay? You'll have to keep an eye on things. Still air models rely on vents for ventilation, but nothing forces the air to move around the incubator. Okay, so it's not the most efficient system. Forced air incubators, like this one here that has a blower, so it has a fan in it, forcing the air to move around the incubator. These are a little bit more expensive, but they're easier to regulate your heat and humidity because they're moving the air. So the heat won't just sit in one spot. What you'll have is you'll have the heat and humidity evenly distributed throughout. Okay? Temperatures are the same throughout these incubators, making things a little easier when it comes to monitoring heat and humidity. They will cost you more. You will always pay more for the forced air version of an incubator. Always, without exception. So tabletop incubators, that's what this is. This sits on a counter or a shelf. It's tabletop. Okay? It's designed to sit on a tabletop. These incubators are cheaper than cabinet incubators. Okay, so yes, Brinsea, this is what this is. This is Brinsea. They make a cabinet incubator as well, and they're much larger and they hold a lot more eggs, like hundreds of eggs, but they cost a lot more. Okay, so your average tabletop incubator will cost you from around 100 to 500, somewhere in that range. Something like this one will cost you around, depending on where you are, 5, 6, because these are top of the line ones. Slightly bigger ones, so they make one that holds double the amount of eggs that this guy has. So this is a 28 egg holder. I actually get closer to 34 because my eggs, I hatch a lot of silkies and they're smaller eggs, but this is a 28. They make a 56 that's double the size, and with that 56, it's a lot more expensive. Okay, but the average price for your tabletop incubators is 100 to 500. Some are more than that. They'll hold anywhere from a dozen to up to maybe 100. I have not seen a tabletop incubator that holds more than 100 eggs. Okay? Most of them will have a turner. So I'm just going to lift this off. Most of them, sorry for shaking the camera. Most of them will have a turner. Okay, these are the turner trays. Okay, these are the turner trays, and the actual turner is in the top. And the gears engage and rock it back like this. Not all turners work the same, but the turners in this one do. So most of them will have a turner. You do want turners. So you won't have to turn the eggs yourself. Turning the eggs yourself is really annoying. So if you can get one that has a built-in turner, that's what you want. Okay? Very handy. But it does increase the cost of the incubator. So you can get incubators that do not have turners. I tend to avoid those except when I'm buying them as a hatcher. So I do have a Brinsea incubator actually underneath here, so right down here, that actually is hatching quail right now. And I'm not going to unplug it and show you. I'm going to move the camera down in a little bit and show you the incubators in this room. But I'm not going to bring it up because there are babies hatching in it, and we're just not going to mess with it. But that one down there doesn't have a turner. I bought it specifically to use it as a hatcher. Okay? I find that the incubators with a turner are worth the extra cost. Okay? As the cost of incubators goes up, they will have other features. You might have humidity monitoring, you might have different features. But definitely you want to look for a turner. Expect to find one or more thermometers and even hygrometers into the incubator, built into the incubator as prices increase. So there's a number of features you do want to look out for in your incubator. Okay? So make sure the incubator you buy has some kind of transparent lid or some kind of observation port. You do want to be able to see, okay? Sorry for shaking the camera again. I had to drop the lid into place. You do want to be able to see into your incubator. Now this was a little bit dirty because I had eggs in it, but you do want to be able to see. So you want a transparent lid or an observation port. You want to be able to observe your eggs at least during the hatching process. So if your incubator itself doesn't have a clear lid or an observation port, you want to make sure your hatcher does. Okay? You'll be less tempted to open your incubator constantly if you can keep an eye on your eggs. Okay, if this was a dark color and I couldn't see into it, I'd constantly be lifting it to check the eggs. So yes, you definitely want to be able to see your eggs. You do not want to open it unnecessarily. So do yourself a favor, get yourself an incubator with a clear top or a viewing door or a viewing port. It will save you some hassle. So you also want an incubator that has a water reservoir of some kind. Okay? Some kind of water reservoir. So in this one, I'm just going to take one of these trays out. Forgive the dirt, I haven't cleaned it. But in this one, the water reservoir is down here. Okay? It actually has two of them. It has another water reservoir at the back that's exactly the same. Okay? There we go. There we go. Sorry, I had put it back wrong. But it has a water reservoir down here with a cover, so if you are hatching in it, the babies don't slip into there. So you do want a water reservoir. If not this, you want to make sure you have room to put a water pan in. So I prefer the built-in reservoir. It has two of them if you need to increase your humidity. But you definitely want to make sure you do have some kind of water reservoir. You don't want an incubator that you can't adjust the humidity by adding or removing water. Humidity is actually important. I'm going to do a separate video where I talk about humidity because it can be a little weird. But humidity is important. So see if you can't get one that has some kind of a reservoir for water. Now, my round incubators, okay, my Maxis, I have Brinsea Maxis, they have a port, a little cup in the middle, and you fill the outside, and that fills the inside cup. So they have a reservoir too, it just doesn't look like this. So you definitely want a reservoir. Egg racks. Also look out for egg racks. You want egg racks. Egg racks are fantastic. Just let me get this back in properly. Oh, there we go. So egg racks are really, really important, okay? You want to be able to have something to put your eggs in, but the type can vary. So some models have eggs that rest on their sides. Those are my domed incubators. They have trays. I'll grab one so you can see. So this is my egg tray for my other style of incubators, which are domed. And these go in the middle and they get turned like this. So it's an egg tray, so it's a turner tray. And it helps the eggs rest. So in this type, the eggs rest on their sides. Okay, so the eggs go sideways. In this type, the eggs go upright. So you rest them fat end up, pointy end down. And that actually gets you quite a few eggs in here. So you do want some kind of egg tray, okay? Some kind of egg rack. Make sure the egg trays are removable so that you can clean them. So I already showed you these lift right out. So you do want to make sure that you can clean them because you want to take them out, be able to just clean them up because they can get kind of icky. If you can't take the egg trays out, use a separate hatcher because the other thing is when you lock down your babies, you want to take the egg trays out so that your babies don't get like their legs stuck in here and get a broken leg. You don't want to leave these trays in. So make sure you can take the egg trays out. If you can't take the egg trays out, then you're going to want to use a separate hatcher. Okay? Some cabinet incubators have a tray that's just for hatching. So if you have a cabinet incubator and has 4 levels, Often the bottom level will be just for hatching. That works well. But take all of that stuff into account when you're selecting an incubator. I also, like I said before, recommend you have an egg turner. Okay, something that turns your eggs for you in your incubator, like this. Or like this. This one engages with the gears on the side, and it just turns around, and then it goes back the other way, turns around, and it does that every few hours. I have mine set to do it. So most expensive incubators do come with a built-in turner. Some cheaper versions don't. Mid-range incubators sometimes don't come with one, but they'll have one that you can buy for that model. Okay, so my domed one that I bought for a hatcher, it doesn't have an egg turner, but you can buy a manual egg turner that you stick in and then just rotate with your fingers. I didn't do that because I was using it specifically as a hatcher. That's why I got it. Okay, most of the time you're going to want the turner. It saves you from having to rotate your eggs yourself. I will talk about turning in a separate video. But I just want to mention right now that you want an incubator that has a turner. Okay? All incubators are different and come with slightly different instructions. I do not want to tell you how to use your incubator because I don't know what one you have. Okay? I have no idea. So, at first you want to follow the instructions that came with your incubator to the letter. Keep records of your hatches, including temperature, humidity, how many eggs you set, and how many hatched. Over time, you can adjust your incubation strategy to get the best hatch possible. Now we're going to talk about what brand you should buy. This depends on a few factors. So it's a really subjective question, really. So you should ask around for recommendations. Now, don't be surprised if you get the answer Brinsea, almost exclusively, or a lot. Okay, you're going to normally hear people tell you you want the NR360 or you want the Brinsea. They're in two totally different price categories. So from a purely objective perspective, Brinsea does make the best incubator. Okay? That's why I upgraded to Brinsea. So I've done a whack ton of research before I upgraded to doing Brinsea, just because I wanted the best, absolute best incubator. So Brinseas are more accurate and easier to use than anything else on the market, and they have the most successful hatches. That actually can't really be argued. There's a plenty of data. However, there are downsides. So you can have a lot of successful hatches. You can get a lot of different racks to put in here, so you can hatch any size egg. And they make everything from tiny tabletop incubators that hatch only 7 eggs to cabinet incubators that hold hundreds. So you can hatch anywhere from 6 eggs to hundreds at a time. What's the downside then? Because someone's going to ask me, so what's the downside? Why doesn't everyone have Brinsea? The expense. They are ridiculously expensive. I will be upfront about that. This incubator should not cost what it cost, but it does. Okay? You get what you pay for, I know. Not everyone can afford the high price tag. And even if you can, if you're like me, you had to save up, okay, to be able to afford to buy one Brinsea at a time. So they're really expensive. I'm not kidding. Most people are not going to buy a Brinsea right away. Okay, most people are going to be like me, and they're going to buy something cheaper, or they're going to make something cheaper, and then eventually, when they save up enough money, they'll buy one Brinsea. One. And then maybe they'll buy a second Brinsea later. But generally, you don't get a Brinsea right out of the gate because they just cost too much. They should not cost what they cost. They should cost less. But they don't. And only the company that makes them gets to decide the price. And so when they say that they're the incubation specialist, they're not kidding. Okay? They're fantastic. But they're pricey. So most people are not going to buy it right away. They wait until they're sure they like hatching, and then if they want to keep hatching and they want to hatch for years and years, and they know it's not a hobby they're going to give up tomorrow, then they might invest in a Brinsea. As a consequence, you don't find them used very often, because somebody's going to ask me, well, are used Brinseas any good? Yes. Yes. Brinseas have a warranty that transfers even if you buy it used. Their warranty is fantastic. I had one machine that didn't work and I sent it back and they sent me a brand new one. No cost to me. It was fantastic. It really is. But they're freaking expensive. Okay? And you're not going to find them used very often because by the time people are buying a Brinsea, they know they want to hatch and they know they want to hatch a lot. Okay, so if you can't afford a Brinsea, and most of us can't, what should you get instead? Really great brands include the GQF, especially the Sportsman if you want to get a cabinet incubator. Magic Fly's not bad. Nurture Right is okay. Nurture Right is one of the best incubators in its price point. You can get them for like $100 to $150. For that price, their Nurture Right 360 is really, really good. However, it's not as good as something like this. So your hatch rates will be lower just because they are. Okay, but for its price point, it's fantastic. You might think about Farm Innovators. I don't love Farm Innovators, but a lot of people do. All of them do the job and are fairly easy to use. Just pick the one that best matches what you want out of hatching. Don't get something bigger than you need, but don't get one too small either. Okay, you don't want to have to buy a second incubator the first time you go to set eggs because you have too many eggs. Now, in this room, I have 3 incubators and a hatcher. It's because I like to hatch every week. So one week this incubator gets filled, another week the other one gets filled, and then I just rotate. And then they go into the hatcher every Tuesday, actually. And then they hatch every weekend, and then I clean up the hatcher, and then they go again on Tuesday. So it's absolutely and totally fine, okay, to have more than one incubator. But you don't have to get a new incubator just because you didn't account for how often you want to hatch. You can also build your own incubator. This is not as difficult as it sounds because at its most simple, an incubator is simply a box with a heat source and a way to hold in humidity. You're turning the eggs yourself unless you build a turner, but building your own incubator can be a fun and interesting project. There are plenty of resources online for how to do this if that's something you're interested in. I did start with an incubator that was just a plastic box that I put a light bulb in and a wet washcloth for humidity. That's how I started. This is where I am now, and now I'm also getting Brinsea cabinet incubators because I love hatching. I love babies. Who doesn't love babies? So, I'm not going to go into, just looking at the length of this video, I'm not going to go into where to put your incubator. I will do that in the next video. Okay, so in the next video, the next hatching video, I will talk about where you should put your incubator, how you should clean it, that kind of thing. But for right now, we're going to stop because, frankly, this video's gone on long enough. So my recommendation is get the best incubator you can afford. So people always ask me, what incubator do you recommend? The best one you can afford. Not everyone has the same pocketbook. So when I started, I had very little money. I used a plastic box with a light bulb. Okay? It takes time to get to where you want. So buy the best one you can afford right now. You don't have to say, well, I'm not going to be able to hatch until I can afford to buy a $2,000 incubator. You can hatch now in a cheaper incubator or even build your own. But that's about it for us here at Andersen Acres. We'll see you tomorrow.